law does say that if I have a fire millage and I collect dollars for the purposes of funding the fire department, I can't take those dollars and spend them in the general fund or the police fund or the library fund. General fund dollars, however, are unrestricted. So, our ability to move funds from the general fund to the fire fund, or, for example, the police fund, when we set a millage rate and the contract went up, I think we transferred something like $25,000 or $30,000 from the general fund to the police fund on a $1.4 million budget. We are well within our rights as a board of trustees to move those dollars in that direction. We, however, acknowledge that it would be done in the form of a loan, but our auditor requested that we don't have a line item for loan repayment, but rather there's other means that those funds can be returned to the general fund. At this point, no plan's been presented because we don't have a formal budget for 2017, so there has been no proposal of how those funds will be repaid. But I do believe it's a matter of record and a matter of the minutes that we approved at the end of 2015, again, by my recollection, about $250,000 up to cover the 15 and 16 deficits in the fire department.
So I do have one comment. I wasn't going to mention this, but I am. You know, Mr. Sunstock stood at the podium about 3 weeks ago, and he mentioned this deficit elimination plan. And it said right in the law that the deficit elimination plan had to be a board resolution. It has to be a board resolution because that could lead to, that's the first step of possibly having, you know, an EFM. That's when communities start, not as bad as this, but it's normally when they start going downhill. If you see a trend 3, 4, 5, 6 years down the road. So I don't understand why, when Mr. Sunstock said that, and I said that we needed to do it as a board resolution, why sometimes there's so much backlash of just trying to follow the law. And instead of, you know, saying people don't know what they're talking about, or we're right, or you're wrong, you know, why is it so hard to just accept that the law provides that on these deficit elimination plans, whatever it is, that it has to be done by a board motion and be done with it? And that's all I want to say on that. Because I'm going to be honest, I was quite offended when, you know, I've been to a lot of treasurers' conferences, and we've talked a lot about this kind of stuff, and that's why I know the law. Just like Mr. Witt knows the law about running an election. You know, when you say something, and you certainly have the documents in front of you saying these are steps 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 on this, you know, that's what it is. And the auditor did clearly state when we were doing our audit that we had to file this with the state. We just follow the law. And when people bring it up, don't call them stupid. Don't say they don't know what they're doing.
You know, hold on, nobody's been calling anybody
any of
stupid.
that.
I mean, let's keep it to the subject.
Well, I'm
Nobody's
just
calling
saying,
anybody
you know, if
stupid.
somebody has the law in front of you, just follow it. That's all it is. End of
enough.
story.
And I'm just gonna, you know, I have to respond to you, and
That's fine. Go
and
ahead.
as I said,
I'm
as I
not
said,
gonna
no,
Hold on,
argue.
please, we gave you a chance to speak,
No,
let's
that's fine.
recognize.
as I said
Mr.
earlier, you know, when the individual spoke, I said very similar things to what I said today. I mean, I'm not above admitting that we need to do something different. I mean, with the last meeting, we got clarification from at the time, we were going off information that we had from Treasury that we were all set. They're the body that interprets the law on behalf of the state. So when they say you're all set, you go, okay, we're all set. In the interim, we got some different knowledge. We acted on it. I don't think I'm too big to say that we need to do something different. Otherwise, I wouldn't have put this on the agenda. So to say that I think somebody's stupid or you know, you're putting words into people's mouth, and that's
All right,
very offensive,
all right,
Mr.
so-
York.
So you didn't say stupid, I understand that, but
Okay.
just the
But just say-
verbiage,
but
the
just say-
verbiage that was given was like everybody's wrong, and when you're sitting there with the law in front of you, that's all I'm saying.
All right.
You know,
We're-
sometimes you need
hey,
to
hey, hold on,
accept
hold on.
something at face
We're not
value
going
when-
anywhere, I mean,
No,
we
that's
can go
fine.
back and forth.
I just wanted to say that.
Let's
that,
wrap
you
it
know,
up, I mean, that's good.
We had the law in front of us, and,
Sure.
you know, just follow the law.
Sounds fair. All right, if there's no further discussion, we have a motion by Mr. Patanti with support by Mr. Brado to adopt the resolution for a deficit elimination plan as presented. Mr. Witt, will you please take the roll call?
Mr. Batanti?
Yes.
Mr. Brado?
Yes.
Mr. Capro?
Yes.
Mr. Tominelli?
Yes.
Mr. York?
Yes.
Mr. Witt? Yes. Mr. Verkust?
Yes, thank you, Board. Next on our agenda, item E1, approval of a boat dock at 41520 Conger Bay. Board members, the property owner at 41520 Conger Bay has applied for a permit to construct a boat dock. Per our ordinance, this must be approved by the Board of Trustees after a review by the township engineer. Mr. Newmer, our township engineer, has reviewed the project, and his recommendation is attached. In addition, the applicant had secured all necessary permits from the Michigan Department of Environmental Quality and the Army Corps of Engineers. Therefore, I recommend approval of the proposed construction at 41520 Conger Bay.
Motion to approve boat dock at 41520 Conger Bay is presented as proposed, subject to adherence to all applicable construction codes.
Support.
All right, got a motion by Mr. York with support by Mr. Brado. Discussion?
You know, Mr. Tominello brought up something prior to the meeting about the $300 engineering fee. Is that how much it costs, that actually costs us, you know?
Yeah, we-
That I don't know. I
Yeah,
know
we
there-
pass
there
the
is a-
cost on.
Yeah, it is a pass-through.
Right, there's,
Well, I'm just saying, if some of these are a simple boat hoist or something, and it only costs us $80, maybe we need to
Yeah,
look at.
so-
no, that
so
isn't that,
actually-
yeah.
That's what I'm getting
Yeah,
at.
so
Yeah,
let me
actually-
address
Go
that
ahead,
first.
go ahead.
The cost is whatever we're invoiced, our cost.
Okay.
That's number one, so it is a pass-through cost, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, and then the other thing is, I do wanna talk to the planner, because I wanna see if there's options on these boat docks. I mean, I guess I'll just leave it at that. We need to have some discussion at the planning level to find out, you know, is it really necessary to go through the engineering and go through this process? Cause we can alter the ordinance if it, in fact, it is not necessary.
That's why I brought it up.
Yep.
This is
And
the
to
only
that
concern.
end,
I'm sorry.
well, I was gonna say, and to that end, I've asked, our building department to keep a tally of some of these ordinances. It happens to be that there are probably at least 3, 4, 5 of them that address marine construction in terms of styles of construction. Not all of them are planning or zoning ordinances, but some of them are regulatory ordinances, and similar to when we addressed what the height of a seawall cap needs to be, there are also some where we question, gee whiz, you know, we get these over and over, we tend to just blanket approve them. Maybe we might need to streamline that process and perhaps reduce the cost. So we don't get as many of these during the winter, so I hope to be able to have some sort of workshop or discussion with this board at some point in the future to talk about probably a handful of ordinances that pertain to marine construction and so forth.
I look forward to that. That'd be great, Mr. Supervisor.
All right. Any other discussion? Hearing none and seeing no public comment, we have a motion by Mr. York with support by Mr. Brado to approve a boat dock at 41520 Conger Bay as proposed, subject to adherence to all applicable construction codes. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, motion carries. Thank you, Board. Next is item E2, regarding a boat hoist. Board members, the property owner at 28019 Moran Street has applied for a permit to construct a boat hoist. Per our ordinance, this must be approved by the Board of Trustees after a review by the township engineer. The township engineer, Mr. Newmer, has reviewed the project and his recommendation is attached. In addition, the applicant has secured all necessary permits from the Michigan Department of Environmental Quality and the Army Corps of Engineers. Therefore, I recommend approval of the proposed construction at 28019 Moran Street.
Motion.
You'll make that motion,
Make
Mr.
that
York?
motion.
All right.
Support.
All right, we got a motion by Mr. York with support by Mr. Tominello. Discussion? Hearing none and seeing no public comment, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, motion carries. Thank you, Board. Next on the agenda, item E3, regarding the Blue Cross Blue Shield Health Plan. Board members, all of our employees share the same high-deductible HSA-eligible health care plan. In this plan, the annual deductible resets every January 1st. Because of this, there is a need to revise our plan date and open enrollment date to January 1st. Our plan representative has informed me that we cannot have a plan year longer than 12 months. Currently, it's 11/1 or a 12/1 date. I think it's 12/1. So he is proposing to have a short plan year from December 1st of 16 to December 31st of 2016, and then a new plan year starting January 1st of 17 and running annual thereafter. He has given us our renewals, and he's indicated that typically Blue Cross will honor a renewal rate for a 1-month period. So the actuaries are constantly looking at what the cost is to provide health care. Probably Mr. Tominelli might understand this better than me, but, so if they quote you a rate as of January 1st, and you say, okay, but I'm not gonna start till June 1st. Well, someone might say, well, hey, the costs have gone up since then. So they've quoted us a renewal rate as of December 1st. Our plan representative from Cambridge Consulting has indicated that they'll likely honor that effective January 1st. So we'll have a short 1-month plan year and then begin every January 1st. One of the big problems is we're in essence saying to our employees, December 1st, make a change. Well, you change December 1st, from December 1st to December 31st, you have exposure for the deductible. It's silly. You might as well, since the deductible starts on January 1st, the plan should start January 1st. So I'm simply asking for authorization to proceed with that. I'm sure there's documentation or paperwork to do that, but the motion proposed is to authorize the supervisor to revise the plan date and open enrollment date of our Blue Cross Blue Shield Health Plan to January 1st of each year.
I'll make that motion.
All right, I've got a motion by Mr. Tominello with support by Mr. Brado.
Sure.
All right. Discussion?
So there's no negative impact then to employees of,
Doesn't change a thing. The only difference is, this is the time when someone might say, I choose to, I've not been a member of the plan,
Okay.
now I choose to opt
Got
in.
it. All right.
We're saying, okay, that option will come available January 1st.
Thank you.
Which, for whatever it's worth, typically coincides with maybe a spouse's employer's plan date frequently, so. And we do have language that allows that if someone, for whatever reason, say a spouse were to be laid off, you can join the plan at some other date, but this is when the open enrollment renewal date is.
okay, thank you.
So, further discussion? Hearing none and seeing no public comment, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, motion carries. Thank you, Board. Next on our agenda, item E4, board members, at our September 12th, 2016 regular board meeting, the board directed my office to execute a contract with MERS to establish and provide retiree health care savings plans for newly hired firefighters. The MERS representative provided me with the attached resolution that we need to execute in order to establish this plan. In addition, this representative from MERS also informed me that the IRS regulations require that for this plan, if we deposit funds for retroactive service, we must include the historical interest that would have accrued as if the funds had been deposited in the default investment option. The interest rate during the 4 months since the first new hire has been 3%. I'm asking for authorization to include that interest of 3%, approximately. That was what the representative had indicated, with the initial deposit into each new firefighter's retiree health care savings plan. So our cost at $200 per month. We have 2 employees that I believe were back in June and 2 employees that, a little bit more recent. So when we look at that, it's about $2,400 in retroactive payments and 3% on, scheduled on some of that needs to be deposited. And it's important to note that there's a specific resolution that MERS, per their plan and per IRS regulations, we need to adopt this resolution in order to be a plan member. So before us is a motion to adopt the resolution and then authorize the additional 3% interest to be paid into those accounts once the plan is established.
Motion to adopt the attached MERS Healthcare Savings Program Uniform Resolution and authorize the deposit of $200 per month with 3% interest retroactively to the date of hire for the 4 newly hired firefighters.
All right, is there support?
Support.
All right, we have a motion by Mr. Witt with support by Mr. York. Discussion?
That 2,400 is the total, right, plus 3%?
It's $200 per month per the contract. So this is the plan that is basically in lieu of retiree health care for new hires. We are giving them a savings account that they might be able to utilize to purchase health care post-retirement.
The only other question I have is, it's a standard resolution, it's quite lengthy. Has Mr. Huth had an opportunity to look at this?
Yes, I have.
And what, in your opinion, is that it's,
It's a lot of things we've seen before this document, so I think it's probably fair.
thank you, sir.
All right.
And the 3% is only for the retroactivity,
Correct. So for example, for the
not
two.
going forward.
No, so for the two employees that would have been for June, if the interest rate during that period was 3% and they had $200 a month for June, July, August, and September, let's just say, they've got $800 going in per person plus 3% of $800.
My only other question, Mr. Supervisor, is where are they getting 3%? Because I'd like to know, just kidding.
Well, yeah, so, and it's important to note that what they have is within their, the IRS establishes the standard or default plan. So let's say, for example, within most of these kinds of things where, you know, maybe if you have some sort of variable annuity or 401k that's through work, they might give you a list of 20 different investment options.
Right.
If you don't declare where your money goes, it goes into a default account, which is presumably maybe a guaranteed interest. I don't know if it's whatever is that default
Right.
account. That one is 3%. And it could be a combination, it could very well be managed funds and not just straight interest. In other words, it could be, 10% in equities
So
and
it
20%
reflects, it
in
reflects a return. We're calling it interest, but it's some type of,
It's some sort of return within
Blended
that plan for the default option. That's what the law states. So,
interesting. Thank you.
all right? Any further discussion? If not, Mr. Witt, will you please take the roll call?
Mr. Witt, yes. Mr. York?
Yes.
Mr. Batanti?
Yes.
Mr. Brado?
Yes.
Mr. Capral?
Yes.
Mr. Tominello?
Yes.
Mr. Verkowski?
Yes, thank you, Board. Next on our agenda, item E5. Board members, over the last several years, there have been numerous proposals to develop the property on the southwest corner of Metro Parkway and Jefferson. During the public hearings held by the Planning Commission for the most recent proposal, many expressed a need to keep the athletic fields as well as a preference for single-family homes. I have met with the current property owners and found a similar interest on their behalf, which I think is really valuable, the fact that they would be willing to say, yes, we want to maintain athletic fields for the benefit of the residents. The Realtors have a smart growth grant program that could fund planning services to accomplish these goals. I worked with the two members of the Realtors group. Bob Taylor is the president of the local chapter or group, I guess you'd say, organization, as well as Lan Lozon in our township here. And together we submitted a request for the maximum $5,000 grant to prepare a preliminary development plan. This would include, I think it is attached, but this includes maybe to look at issues such as some issues relative to stormwater, sanitary sewer, but also issues relative to density, relative to, current, best practices for developing single-family, and so forth. One of the landowners has indicated a willingness to provide the additional $5,000 in matching funds. So we've met with development professionals and confirmed that the study would be useful in attracting investment. So we're not saying that any one particular person is gonna make this development. This is still the property held on behalf of the landowners. Both landowners are residents that have expressed a willingness to do this, but may not necessarily have a development background. So in an interest to try to move that forward in a way that is what I believe to be congruent with what the township has, and the residents have indicated during these public hearings, we've gone out, secured this grant. Wade Trim has prepared a proposal to provide the study services. I've got material, the reference material for that. So we're looking for a motion to accept the $5,000 grant and authorize Wade Trim to do this study at a cost not to exceed $10,000 with no funds coming from the township.
I'll make that motion. Support?
Motion by Mr. York with
It's
support
a
by
no-brainer.
Mr. Tominello.
Says
Well-
no funds from the township, and
Yeah.
we get a.
Yeah, but I
we
think
get a
it's,
study, and the guy's gonna possibly give us land for a thing, no-brainer.
yeah, I think it is a real gift, and it's an opportunity, and it's also an opportunity to shape what falls on that property, as opposed to where we were 2 years ago, looking at the potential for possible litigation and rezoning issues and so forth. So I think it's a positive development.
And I think it's important to note, while it is a no-brainer to adopt this, I know this was been a ton of work from the supervisor's office trying to work with the Realtors group, work with the landholders. I mean, this is gonna take us 5 minutes to adopt it, but it's probably been days' worth of work in your office, and I know you and I have spent some time on it as well and over and above, so thanks for putting in the effort to get this essentially free money.
Yeah, I actually drew a concept early on. I know some of you have probably
I've
seen
seen
it,
it,
to try
yeah.
to get the imagination stimulated,
And I spoke to the landowner too, and he's very excited about,
yeah, so.
moving forward with this, so.
So, all right, good. Any discussion? Hearing none, we'll open up the floor for public comment.
Jim Sunstock, 31698 San Juan. In this particular case, I really like getting free money from somebody, and including the property owner and also the Realtors Association. This is for the site that's currently being used as essentially a St. Hubert Fair parking lot, and the area where that's got all the soccer fields and all, that goes all the way over to Prentice, all the way up to Metro Beach, kind of a triangular piece of property. The question I have is, once you get this development plan, what are you gonna do with it? You're gonna give it to the person, the owner, or are you gonna incorporate it in our master plan and our zoning ordinance? I guess, it says something about an implementation strategy, a zoning plan with recommended zoning language, code incentives, and or other code amendments where appropriate. Is that gonna be mandatory, or is that gonna be dependent on the property owner? If the property owner don't wanna rezone it, he doesn't have to. Or is there some kind of condition that's gonna require him to rezone this and to hold true to this conceptual plan that we paid over $10,000 for? It's just some questions. Somehow it seems like government likes to spend money, and especially when they do plans. And somehow they seem to wash out, and at the end of the day, we never hear about them again. So the other question I have is, when are we going to expect some return or some information back from this plan that we're paying $10,000 for? There's no deadline put on it. There's no, we could go 6 months, we could go 2 years. So I think that needs to be addressed by this board before you go ahead and step into this kind of a relationship, even though it is free money. Thank you.
Thank you. Seeing no other public comment, we'll close the floor for public comment and move back to board comment. Well, I gotta say, we gotta remember a couple of things here. One is not only is this quote-unquote free money, which is worth stating that the Realtors see value in our plan and what we're proposing to do at that site, enough that they're saying, well, we'll collectively contribute $5,000. But I think it's certainly very generous and very telling that one of the property owners says, in addition, I'll contribute $5,000. But it's important to note that throughout this process, what we're talking about is a parcel of land, first and foremost, that currently is kind of like a piece of meat that sharks are trolling around looking at, including some proposals that clearly, based on public hearings, it was proposed to be developed in a way that certainly a large number of residents came out and spoke against, including some of the residents who are here today. That's number one. So we want to take an active role in that. Number two, we have a parcel of land in this triangle that's currently being used for public benefit, but it's privately held. We've got soccer fields and we've got families, and certainly you drive by there a lot of days right now and you see a lot of kids out there, people having fun, families out there, recreation, a lot of positive things. But the reality is, if a developer comes along and goes to that property owner and says, you know what, I'll give you this right now, and I want to do whatever I want to do, it's gone. Not only do we no longer have soccer fields, but we start to lose some control. So when property owners collectively say, yes, we're willing to work on a plan, and we like your idea, and we've shown documents and actually proposed the ultimate donation in the end of some of that land in the public trust to the township for the purposes of athletic fields, I'm moving forward on that. I don't know that I'm gonna go to that property owner and say, okay, well, here's the 17 restrictions that I'm gonna assign to you. If they're willing to talk about donating land and they're willing to spend money toward a study, at this point, I'm ears. I might not necessarily be in the back seat, but I don't know that we're totally driving. We're helping to steer this by bringing multiple property owners, residents together that have clearly stated an interest of doing something to better the township. It's worth noting that the property owners that are involved literally live within eyesight or within a stone's throw of this property. So they have a vested interest to improve it in a way that benefits them. One of the property owners, I mean, clearly everyone knows there was, the Calwart Farm was there. It's been there for many years. They're very invested in our community, as evidenced by the fact that they mow a field on a constant basis and maintain it so that young people can go and play soccer. So I don't feel like I'm going into this with anyone that isn't a partner. But admittedly, I approached Wade Trim and said, we'd like to go to the next level to see what are the challenges? Do we have some issues with stormwater? Are there floodplain issues? Our engineer indicated during the prior proposal of the parcel that used to be Marino's that there are some challenges with floodplain there, and that's going to be an obstacle. But the beauty of this is one of the things that planners like and floodplain managers love to see is floodplains used in the form of athletic fields, because if they flood, what's the failure mode? So there really are some important synergies available with this property. But at this point, what we're saying is, yes, we'll accept a grant, we'll move forward, keep in mind, we have a seat at the table, and we're utilizing our township engineer to assist in this process. So we do have, I don't want to say a level of control, but we certainly have some input. But even more importantly, we're clearly dealing with civic-minded residents who want to see something for the betterment of our community.
The property owner is extending an opportunity for us to be involved,
Correct.
and he doesn't need to do that.
That's
He's
no
giving
question.
this back to the community.
Right.
I think we're in such better situation with this piece of property than we were, whatever that was, a year or 18
Yes.
months ago.
Absolutely.
And there have been a lot of people that have worked very hard on this, and I know that Mr. Burkess is one of them. And I do appreciate the generosity of the residents as well.
That's the
So I
biggest
think-
one, that's
right,
for sure.
right.
I'll work all day when somebody's willing to talk about that. So, any further discussion? Hearing none, we have a motion by Mr. York with support by Mr. Tominello to accept the $5,000 grant from the Realtors and authorize Wade Trim to perform the conceptual development plan for the area bounded by Prentice Street, Jefferson Avenue, Metropolitan Parkway at a cost not to exceed $10,000 with no matching funds coming from the township. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, motion carries. As I was reading the motion, it does occur to me, the Realtors grant has a one-year timeline. And I believe we found out early summer on that grant. Presumably, this work has to be completed within the next roughly 6 months, if I were to guess or estimate. So to the resident's question about a timeline. Next on, we do have a closed session item, but before that, we will open up the floor for public comments. Item F.
No.
Oh, yeah, understood, that's fine.
The one company's called. They were calling me, probably because it's Tuesday.
Yep. Hello. Hi, Greg. Good. I will tell you, I'm in the middle of a board meeting because of Columbus Day. Our board meeting is today, and you're calling. Yeah.
Makes sense.
I would say that's perfect.
So the question was earlier with the cable.
All right, have a good
apparently
time. Thank you.
Comcast is
All right,
having some
bye.
issues with the sound on the Comcast, not on the, I'll have to call them tomorrow morning. It's probably on their end more than on our end.
Okay.
Good evening, board members. I'm speaking as a resident and retired builder. What I handed out to you is an excerpt from page 2 and 3 of the 2009 Michigan Residential Code, which this board has adopted, and that's what we operate under. For the residents out in TV land, I'd like to read the excerpt that I gave you. R 105.2 says work exempt from permit. Exemption from the permit requirements of the code shall not be deemed to grant authorization for any work to be done in any manner in violation of the provisions of the code or any other laws or ordinances of this jurisdiction. Permits are not required for the following. A, building permits shall not be required for any of the following. Number 2 is a fence that is not more than 6 feet tall. or 6 feet high, excuse me. I had a resident approach me that our building inspector came for no good reason. They have a permit to do some remodeling, but they haven't started any work, so of course they haven't called for any inspections, and he gave them a violation and told them that they needed to pull a permit, which they did, paid $60 for it, when they were replacing sections of a privacy fence that exist. It's just a maintenance issue. So my question is, why did this happen? I can tell you why, because we have a building official that doesn't know these rules yet. He's a fine young man, but he's new to the game. So this is just another example. I think that's enough said about that, but I think you should refund those people the money. You can find out from the building department who it is. Okay, another issue, it was on this paving special assessment district. I stood up here when Bayhaven was on the thing, and I suggested that you use equivalent front footage. And when these people come forward, they come to the clerk's office, I assume, and they ask how to do this, the clerk should tell them that if you want to use front footage, they should use equivalent front footage. We wasted 45 minutes of time here and probably aggravated some of the residents with needlessly. Had equivalent front footage been used, then none of that would have happened. That's what should be used. If you're going to use front footage, equivalent should be used. There's all kinds of reasons why the assessor's office adjusts things. If a lot is extra deep, they may charge more than the front footage. If it's extra shallow, they may reduce it. The formula isn't just a simple average in the back and the front. There's a little more complicated than that. But at any rate, you should, from now on, use equivalent front footage. Okay, enough said on that. Now, Bill Servil, candidate. I am running for township trustee. Those of you that watch these meetings regularly already know me. I'm running because it's past time for a change. A majority of the current trustees are members of the St. Hubert's Knights of Columbus. While that organization does a lot of good work, they don't belong in politics. If you notice, the votes here are usually 6-1, with Darren York being the lone dissenter. Have you ever wondered why? They have formed a slate with 5 current members and 2 new ones. One longtime member elected not to run for re-election. The 2 new members have only recently taken any interest in the workings of this board. Even now, we have no idea where they stand because they have yet to come up to the podium to express any opinions. I would suggest this is probably because they intend to vote in lockstep with the slate if they are elected. This is not a healthy situation for the township. I humbly suggest you retain Darren York and consider electing some new faces. If you feel I am worthy, then I would appreciate your vote. Additionally, I would urge everyone to vote no on the Regional Transit Authority. Macomb County, and especially Harrison Township, will receive little, if any, benefit from this plan. For people that may not be aware of it, all 4 counties have to approve this or else the whole thing fails. I see that we don't get enough benefit even out of SMART for the money that we put towards SMART. This is just another boondoggle. When I was a young man, I rode the streetcars down Woodward Avenue, and the population of Highland Park and Detroit was over double what it is right now. And they still ripped them out because they weren't viable. Now they want to put what they call light transit. It's streetcars. All right, finally, remember in the general election you can split your ticket, unlike the primary where you had to choose a party. Thank you for listening.
Thank you.
Good evening, Board. Chris Burden, live on Lake Shore. One of the people who've never come up to the podium. I have a couple questions. I did some research. I've been looking into things in the township. I recently did a FOIA request on, I was looking for the contract to collect the funds for the summer school taxes. We charge the school district a certain amount. We collect those funds, postage and things like that. So I received a response back from Mr. York, basically, it says that the 2013 contract was given to the finance director to bill out. And it goes on to say, we verbally extended our 2014 contract for 15 and 16 as there were no changes. So my question is, I'd like to know who negotiates the contract with the school board as to what we're gonna charge them for collecting the school taxes. And I would ask, also, since when do we do verbal contract extensions? I'm not sure that's appropriate, but I'd like to see something in writing when we're paying or sending out a bill for $24,000. I'm sure the people who are paying that bill would like to see something in writing as well. My only other comment after those questions is I'm very disturbed by seeing the amount of late fees that the township is paying when we're paying our bills. I think it's ridiculous. I think there's no need for it. Thank you.
Thank you.
William Bardell, 37865 Point Rosa. 19-year resident, new kid on the block, candidate for trustee here in our wonderful township of Harrison Township. I want to just say, you can visit my Facebook page if you want to know a little more about me. William Bardell for Harrison Township, trustee. Or you can call me at 586-610-4342. Talk about anything you want to talk about with me. I want to just talk real quick about this subject, about this deficit reduction plan. You guys are, the only one who sounded the bullhorn on this was Darren York and Jim Semstock. When you're deficit spending, you must have a deficit reduction plan. This is very basic. I know we have a finance director. I think this is pretty basic stuff. When your funds fall below a certain rate, you have to report to the state on your plan. This is real basic stuff. It's not real complicated. Mr. York sounded the bullhorn. Jim Semstock sounded the bullhorn. He was blowing off. Now take your slap on the wrist, and I'm going to move on to something else. I want to talk about the dumping in Lake St. Clair. I know you don't want to hear about it. Some people will say, well, there's human DNA in hot dogs, which is nothing more than human hair and skin dander. I want to talk about human feces DNA that's in our water. And this is in our water because on 10/2/2016, the city of Warren dumped 53.15 million gallons of sewage into the Red Run drain, which goes to the Clinton River. Needless to say, it goes to Lake St. Clair. They dumped from 10:50 p.m. all the way till on 9/29/2016 to 10/2/2016. So you can imagine how many days that was. They dumped 53.15 million gallons of sewage. Our friends at the Martin Retention Basin dumped on 9/29/2016 and ended their dumping on 10/2/2016, and they dumped 104.3 million gallons of sewage into Lake St. Clair. Our friends at the 12 Towns drain dumped on 9/21/2016 to 10/1/2016, and they dumped 735.7 million gallons of sewage into our lake. Our friends at the 9 Mile Chapton Retention Basin dumped on 9/29/2016 to 10/3/2016. They dumped from They dumped 83.6 million gallons of sewage into Lake St. Clair. Go on and on and on and on. I would like to invite everybody to come out to our Save Lake St. Clair meeting. That's going to be next Tuesday, October 18th. Starts at 7, ends at 9. I'll probably go a little later. You might want to get there a little earlier, get some refreshments, cool down a little bit. That's going to be at the VFW Hall on 1146. I'm sorry, the VFW Post 1146, the Bruce Post, and that's on 28404 Jefferson and St. Clair Shores. That's south of Martin Road, which is 11 and a half, and that's east of Jefferson. That's 28404 Jefferson. And you can go on Save Lake St. Clair Facebook and get signed up. If your computer's on the fritz, you can give me a call personally. I'll pencil you in. And I'll call Mike Gutlow and I'll get you in. So you can give me a call at 586-610-4342, and I'll pencil you in for the meeting. So we have, you may have noticed that if you go on SaveLakeSt. that it's not working. Mike Gutlow has to spend $1,000 a pop every time to get that thing going. There's trolls out there that don't want this information out there. So, but you can go on Save Lake St. Clair on Facebook. And thank you very much, board members. Have a wonderful evening.
Thank you.
Jim Senstock, 31698 San Juan. It's no secret that I'm running for supervisor. A lot of signs put up around the township, et cetera. A lot of mailings have been made. But the issue I want to talk about today is one that's kind of by, we were talking earlier about elephants, and it's the elephant in the room. And it's the fact that Mr. Verkest is never in his office. He doesn't come to work. He works very minimally. He works at his home. And he works at his home for his own business. And in case everybody didn't understand, or doesn't understand, oh, geez, he's just working at home, he's working at his business. The fact is that he brags about the fact he made $160,000 in gross revenue at that business for one person. Now, if he made $100 an hour doing his work at home business, he's working 1,600 hours. Because when you do an independent business like that, the majority of the gross revenues goes to the independent owner. So he's not there 1,600 hours a year. There's only 2,080 hours available in the work week, in the township work week for the year. Well, that kind of leads us back to the question, he's never there. I've heard countless residents say, and when I call, I'm told he's in a meeting. I advise him to go over and take a look at his house and see where his car's parked. Because if he's in a meeting, he's in a meeting in his basement. That is a problem, and apparently the residents have to decide if they're willing to put up with that. They weren't willing to put up with it, supposedly, when they recalled me, but they've put up with it ever since with Mr. Knowles, Mr. Forlini, and now Mr. Verkest. The fact is, people, you aren't getting your money's worth. You aren't getting anything. So I want to be very, very clear. I'm retired. I've been retired for 13 years. I don't work. I don't develop. I don't do any of that kind of stuff. I enjoy myself. But I see a real problem with this board, especially the leadership. I see a real problem with not only Mr. Verkest, but Mr. Witt. We're not getting our money's worth. We're not getting our township's money's worth. And if you want somebody that's gonna come in and save you money and get you better services, I'm proposing that you vote for me. Just as a further aside or whatever, last Wednesday, I went to a fundraiser for, well, it was actually a fundraiser, spaghetti dinner type of thing, for Dana Camphouse, who's running for state rep. She's a Democrat. I'm a Democrat. Wow, okay, no problem. I don't work, I can do that. But who, to my great surprise, shows up at this? None other than Mr. Verkest at 1 o'clock in the afternoon. Well, geez, okay, he stopped in to make an appearance and he was gonna leave. He was still there at 4:30. So in addition to the hours he's working in his basement, he's also attending fundraisers, political fundraisers, and they're not even for people in his own party. We are not getting our money's worth out of Mr. Verkest, and it's time that people realize that and put somebody in that's gonna work for them, gonna protect their money for them, gonna help them, gonna listen to their concerns. Because Ken can't even listen to your concerns because he's never there, ever. I've been told he drives in and walks in at 2 o'clock in the afternoon on Tuesdays and Thursdays. That's it. I don't know how long he stays, but I'll tell you what, it's not fair to the residents, and it's time you put an end to it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Brian Backins, 27825 Lauren. A couple things. Couple things were mentioned that I'm new to township politics. Sort of in my DNA, if you will, that I try and keep things positive. Has this board done a good job? I will say yes. If Mr. Capro was not stepping down, I think he's done a great job. I would not have thrown my name in the hat. That being said, during the primary, July 31st, everybody can probably think back to what they were doing that night. Some flyers were distributed. And it was pretty upsetting, because it attacked me and attacked my family. But probably more importantly, it affected, I believe, Mr. Bottani and Mr. Tominello, because they are two gentlemen who have served on this board with dignity and done nothing but respect the township residents. Again, I want to say it again. I believe the board has done a great job. As far as Ken Verkest is concerned, he's one of the best supervisors I think we've had in a long time. I don't believe this to be true, but I don't know that you were ever recalled or anybody ever signed any petitions to recall Mr. Verkest. That was not the case back in, I believe, 2002. And the resident mentioned it, and I'm glad he did, because this gentleman running for trustee had not forgotten that. And I believe, as a Democrat, and I can't confirm this, but I have a note here that says this, so sometimes I can't read my own handwriting, so I apologize, that he was not a Democrat when he sat as a supervisor. So I don't know if it's decide what party you like, whatever fits best. If I am elected, I will serve with the respect that most of the board members have up there today. I do believe the township's moving in the right direction, and I'd like to be part of continuing that. Thank you.
Thank you. Seeing no other public comment, we'll close the floor for public comment and move back to board comment. I'll try to respond the best I can to some of the comments. I do see the document that the one resident presented. It is one page out of the book. I think it's worth noting that the process of requiring permits for fences didn't just begin within the last 6 to 9 months. It's been a longstanding practice within the building department. I'm sorry, please. So I think it's important to note that while we can take a look at this, it would be unfair to label this as an issue associated with any one employee. For the 6 years almost that I've been supervisor, and for the almost 8 years that I've served on this board, we have required permits for fences. But I think it's a valid point. You brought something forward, and I have no problem inspecting, looking into it, see what's going on there. I take exception to the resident's comment that we wasted the residents' time with the process of deliberation. The fact is, we called for a public hearing, and the purpose of that public hearing is for us to get input from the residents and look at any issues or any abnormalities or any problems with that role, so that when we adopt it, it's fair to everybody that's involved. So I don't believe that the time that we spend in deliberation, when we're talking about spending $200,000 of residents' money, is a waste of time. But that's just my personal opinion. I take great exception. I'm not sure where the $160,000 gross revenue issue comes. It certainly is a matter of historical fact, and I'm certainly proud of the fact that from the time I was probably 16 and in high school until today, I've had a business offering design services. When I was a younger man, I did something as simple as design decks for a local builder. And toward the end of those years, I was doing tool design. When I was appointed supervisor in 2011, that was my primary source of income. I've never grossed $160,000 in that business, and I would be more than happy to release the corporate tax returns for Verkest Engineering for the past 3 years. The last time I had any revenue from Verkest Engineering, any earned income of any kind, was in 2012. So for the years 2011 and 2012, during that time that I was appointed as supervisor, I really wasn't sure if I was going to be successful in re-election or if I was going to be successful as a supervisor. So I did maintain business contacts for 2011 and 2012. It certainly wasn't a living wage. There's not enough money that I can show, but I'm happy to show those tax returns as well. But simply stated, I do not have any other source of income other than that which I gain from the township. So I take great exception to the residents' clearly false accusations, and I'd be more than happy to prove that. And then lastly, the resident is correct. I was at, not a fundraiser, but a senior pasta lunch for one of the candidates for the state representative. And I don't know that the resident or that any of the board member understands it until maybe you are in this chair or in one of our chairs. But the reality is, politically, as supervisor, I'm just about the littlest fish out there. I don't have the ability to go to the state and demand things or go to the county and demand things. I have to cooperate with every level of government on every level, be they Democrats or Republicans. I think it's worth noting, campaign finance will reveal that I have not contributed to Dana's campaign, and although she'd asked me early on to support her campaign, I said that it's difficult, being that there is a difference in party, to cross that party line. However, I told her then, and I maintain today, when she was the county commissioner for Harrison Township, she did an excellent job. And I've told her, and I have no problem saying, that if she is successful in her bid for state representative, I believe she would be a good representative. She called me personally several weeks before the event and asked if I would go and attend the event. I did. The district she's running for encompasses Clinton Township and Macomb Township, and I think it's worth noting that the Republican supervisor for Macomb Township was there, and the Republican supervisor for Clinton Township was also present. I know it may be offensive to folks that during the day, during working hours, I might be at an event such as that. But the reality is, typically, the way incumbency works, if Dana is successful getting in, she's probably our state representative for the next 6 years. Typically, when folks get in, they usually hang on to their seat. I don't think I'm serving the residents well by putting a divider between me and that representative, or potential representative, if that's the way it works out. It certainly isn't the first time that I've done something like that. I'm comfortable saying that sometimes during the day, our other elected officials have events and they ask you to come from time to time. I also know that some evenings I spend time here. I go to homeowners association meetings. The reality is, I know that there are probably times during the day when I'm afforded the opportunity to perhaps go to a SEMCOG event and tour University of Michigan Stadium. But I also know that there are times that I spend at meetings or going to special assessment district issues, meeting with residents on any number of things. Sometimes residents say, I'd like to meet with you, but I simply can't be there before 4:30. It's rare that I leave my office at 4:30. But I have no problem affirming the residents' accusation, I guess, or claim that I was present at a function for a resident who's running for state representative, and I believe that I'm serving the residents best by taking an active role in that. So that's all I have.
Yeah, what a wacky election, huh? Who would have thought your Republican brethren would be going against you? And that's all I have to say about that. I would go look at the Macomb County Republican Party motion that they made last night. So to answer Mr. Burden's question, I don't know how deep you want me to go into this issue, but I can make it as quickly as possible. With regards to school taxes, the school taxes are done for free in December. The law allows the school, by resolution, which they send to the clerk, and he forwards on to me, to move that to the summer. When they move that to the summer, because that the townships were doing it for free in the winter, when they move it to the summer, the state allows the township treasurer to negotiate with the school system, all of the school systems, Lance Cruz, the MISD, the Macomb Community College, on a rate to collect those taxes. Now, that's pretty much the way it goes. Now, I'll give you some history on why we got to 2014 and why we just verbally agreed. Back when I first started, we were getting about, I don't know, probably 70 cents, 90 cents. We were getting the lowest amount in the state. It was crazy what was going on here, because Macomb Community College, part of that system is if the township treasurer decides not to collect the taxes, then it goes to the county. If they can't make a resolution to figure out the dollars, then it goes to the county. The county can either accept or deny taking those taxes at a certain rate, and then that always defers back to the township treasurer to accept that new rate. But what we had in Macomb County was the MISD was actually collecting Macomb Township's taxes. So they were collecting those taxes very cheap, which drove down everybody. We were actually losing money on the deal. And right now, I'm gonna say we're probably breaking even. So what occurred over the next few years was that I entered negotiations with the school system, very contentious negotiations, and I started ratcheting that up and ratcheting it up and ratcheting it up every year. And lo and behold, I believe it was, boy, I can't even remember the year. But if people remember, they moved the county tax collection from the winter to the summer. When the state moved that from the winter to the summer, they put in the law that if you're a township that you did not collect taxes, you could keep $2.50 per parcel out of the state education tax. So at that point, that created an artificial floor for the tax collection. So talked to the school, we set on the $2.50. I'm like, why am I gonna collect your taxes for less than what the state will give me to do the same service? So we settled on the $2.50, it's been that way for the last 3 years. You know, I have a pretty good, you know, we work with finance very closely. You know, we're always sending them millions of dollars back and forth because we are their tax collection unit, as long as they want us to be. And we collect $250. So, I mean, honestly, it was, you know, I gave you the minutes of the board. Their board approved the $2.50, so it was really pretty simple. They call me and say, hey, Darren, what are you gonna charge us for the tax collection? I said, we're gonna do the same as last year. You have two parties that came to a consensus. You know, I didn't think that, you know, I need to make anything official. I just wrote down, you know, that's that. Their school board approved the $2.50. I don't think we're at risk. So that's that. And now I will say, in the Glenn, since for 12 years I've been here, Mr. Spencer, the finance director, would bill out for that. And I will say that last year when I was talking with the new finance director, apparently that got missed, so we're working together and we're gonna get that last year's payment made to us. And I can always take that out of their tax collection at any time. But like I said, it's not that there's a like huge negotiation here. It's set at $250. I'm not gonna change that. And I will tell you that Harrison Township gets the highest amount of anybody in Macomb County. Because Clinton Township and nobody else gets the $250 minimum. So I think I've negotiated it pretty well, keeping the township interest at heart. So if there's any questions on that, I'm more than happy. You can call me. I can send you the tax law if you'd like. But that's pretty much it in a nutshell. I hope that it answers the question.
Just speaking as one board member, for 25 grand, there should probably be a contract.
Well, there is.
But a verbal contract is not a contract, and them approving it isn't this, a two-party contract isn't the same when only one person has a record of approving it. Seems, I mean, if I would.
That's not true, Adam, because think about this.
No,
The school board,
I'm not saying it hasn't worked, or maybe.
Wait a minute, Adam. The school board takes that to their members and they vote on it. I say we're gonna do the same thing last year, so they put the same contract in the school board packet and they approve it. How is that not?
You just said there's no contract.
How is that not accepting it? I said we're approving the contract from last year. So they take the contract and they put it in there and they approve the contract from last year. There's no changes to it.
But you said it was a verbal
You're just-
extension. No, you said it
you're
was a
just
verbal.
extending it.
No, I'm just, Darren, I'm not saying that the money's uncollectible, or, I'm just saying as one board member's opinion, for a $25,000 receivable, there should be something in writing.
Well, you're misunderstanding what happened, like I said.
Well, you're right, what you
We're-
wrote
okay, so
says
let me
it was
start
a
this
verbal
again.
extension
So
for
let
2
me
years.
start this
No,
again,
I don't need
okay?
to hear it again,
Let me start this
sharing
again,
It's an
okay?
opinion, Darren.
The school board,
Hold on, I have a
the
question,
school
Darren.
board is 7 members.
Is there a written contract?
Vote, yes,
What year?
yes, there is. It's 2014, and the school board renewed that contract in a 7-0 vote. That's
So
my
we do
point.
have one. We have a-
Absolutely.
We have one.
So the
Okay.
school board, just to be really clear here, the school board takes that and says, here's the contract, and they extended it in a 7-0 vote to collect the taxes for $2.50.
Maybe-
I don't understand how that is being misread or mischaracterized. Mr. Burden has the minutes, because I had the minutes of the school board attached to the contract.
Maybe we should have that contract, the 2014 contract, forwarded to Mr. Hoos so he could review it, to make sure that everything is copacetic. I agree with Adam, I think it's a lot of money, and I think that we should have the written contract from 2014 in forward. I mean, I don't think there's anything wrong with asking our township attorney to review the contract that's in writing and make sure that that is moved forward to, let's say, 2016, 2017. I don't know about the gap with 15, but
Well, the contract has been the same since I came 12 years ago.
I understand that.
And
But
I just used the,
Right.
as a matter of fact, I can tell you, every year, we would just change
The year.
the year and the date, and then we would change the amount. Now, in 2013, I did, and that was, what was different was that we negotiated a flat rate for each parcel plus the bank fees. Because they didn't want to go to the 250 because that meant that Clinton Township or whatever was gonna go to that too, and they didn't want to do that.
I don't think there's anything wrong with having, I don't think it would take Rob long to review the contract and make sure that everything is being handled appropriately. I understand what you're saying between the voting bodies.
I don't know what to
but
say. It's
I
like the
think we should
SYO
probably still have
contract.
something in.
I mean, it's just like the SYO contract. We're renewing the contract for SYO. We vote yes.
Right, but there's-
I guess I don't understand. Maybe it's because it's election season. I don't know.
No, but the difference
But
between the
then, I mean,
SYO
that's the way
contract
this
is there's
that's the
two
way this
parties
board
that
does
approve
it.
that contract, and there's a written record that there's two parties that approve the contract. You're saying it was a verbal extension, all I'm saying, and I understand, you can negotiate verbally and get it done, but there should be a paper where both parties sign and say, yep, here we go, so we don't have, so there's no question about
Mr. Huth-
$25,000.
Mr. Huth, can you do that and have the school board approve 7-0, extending the contract? I mean, that's the question. I mean, come on. You have a meeting of the minds, you're not making any changes. I don't know what to.
You know, I've heard a couple different renditions of the facts. Are the facts that the school board reviewed a contract, the dates were changed to reflect 16 from 14, and it was approved by the school board?
I don't believe so.
Okay.
We were extending the contract.
Well, would
Just
you mind,
extending it
how
a year.
how about this to resolve it? I'll take a look at it, and then if there needs to be further action, this board can take it, or the school board can.
That's what I'm suggesting. I think we should do that.
I'm saying it may
Are
be
you
an,
out of your mind? Seriously.
well, Darren, I just asked if
Wait a minute, what facts are we not understanding here? The facts are simple, okay? We negotiated a contract in 14. They called me, I said, we're gonna do the same thing last year. They take it to the school board. They vote 7-0 to extend the contract from 14 to 15, right? End of story.
But I know the facts I
End of
put back
story.
to you was
It's
similar
just
to
like-
that.
It's just like SYO, we're gonna just extend the current contract 3 years.
And the
correct?
facts I gave back to you, Darren, was essentially what you just repeated to me. I said, did they take the contract and change the date and approve it? And you said, no.
They didn't change the date, they just approved the previous contract and extended it a year. That's my point.
It might be semantics. It sounds to me like.
Correct, that's my point. We're talking semantics. So whether or not you put 15 on it and say, here you go, and you approve that, or you say, here's the 14 contract and extending it a year, it's the same end result that you have the same contract extended for a year, or a contract that says 15 or 16.
Well,
That's all I'm saying.
have we collected all the money from 14, 15, and 16?
We collected,
We don't collect 16 yet, would we?
yeah, we don't
Would-
collect 16
okay.
yet.
So the question would be,
15.
have we received payment for the years
Well,
13?
I just said-
I'm sorry, Mr. York, I waited. My question to you is have we received payment for collecting the taxes for the school district for 2013, 2014, and 2015?
You would have to ask finance for 13 because they bill. So Adam, did you get the check in?
There was no bill for, when we did the FOIA request, based on the information that had been provided from the treasurer's office to the accounting department to request the billing. There was only, I wanna say, a billing for 14 based on your direction.
Right. There was no billing in 13 and there was no billing in 15.
Well, there was a billing in 14,
That's what I said.
which is for 13, because we changed it in,
Well, let's say this, the
the
revenue.
tax years are sort of screwed up.
In
Let's say over a
2013,
3-year period,
in
there was only one
2013,
collection.
there is zero revenue for school
Well,
property
then-
tax
then-
collection.
then the school district- then-
2014,
wait a
there
minute,
is
hear me-
revenue.
then
In
hear me out, then
2015,
hear me
there is
out.
no
Then
revenue.
this is what I would say, the school district never sent us the check based on the invoice that the finance department sent.
That's
we don't
about
have a-
$50,000 of missing revenue
And
though,
we don't have a
right?
contract with them, a written contract for them to not send us a check?
Like I said to Marge, we have a contract, but I believe that it's all in Jared's old stuff, and I would have to go and have SYO, which if the board wants me to do that, I'm more than happy to do that. I mean,
Well, let me say
Jared's
this, you know what I
been
want
gone
most? I want to
2013.
collect $50,000 in uncollected revenue.
well, this
That's
is what I'm,
means the
this
most
is
to
what
me.
I'm gonna say, you can blame me all day long on that.
I haven't blamed anybody. I
But
said
once
I think
again,
it's
like I
importantly
said,
collected.
Mr. Verkest, about 1,000 times, the finance department in Glen billed it out. Mr. Spencer gets the check and does his stuff. Now, if it hasn't been done and we didn't receive the check, I don't know yay or nay on that answer. I don't know because I don't track that. After Mr. Spencer sends the invoice. What happens from there, I don't have anything to do with.
Well, you do, because your office receives the
So-
checks and deposits
so-
into the appropriate
so-
accounts.
Well, I will say this, Adam, sometimes the girls get the check and they receive it into, you know that.
You're still
okay?
responsible for it, then.
Okay, so,
And
you know,
Mr.
whether
York,
it's
hey, Mr.
taxes,
York,
whether
your
it's
attitude
taxes
tonight-
or,
we're not, I wasn't
or
trying to accuse
anything.
anything.
I haven't made any
We're just
accusations.
wanna
Well,
make
you
sure we're-
are.
No,
I
you
haven't made
are.
any
No,
accusations.
you
All I
are.
said is I think it's important that we collect any
Oh, no,
uncollected
you
revenue.
are, what you're saying, what you're saying is, Mr. York, you're not doing your job.
I've never said
You're
that.
not doing this.
I
you're not
haven't laid
collecting
blame.
money. But the simple fact is that we have a good relationship with the school district. And I can tell you, if it does in fact, and we can check whatever, I don't run the finance department, so Glenn would book that stuff in different years and things. So sometimes you have to look in different years. But if in fact we're owed that money, I am always allowed to take it out of the tax dollars that we send to the school.
So can we do this?
I mean, it's
Can we-
very simple.
I have a question. Regardless of any accusations of fault, can we just make a firm determination as to whether or not we've gotten paid what we should have been paid for the last 3 years?
Well, I just
Well,
said, I just
And
said.
bring,
What did
Well-
you say? I'm sorry, go ahead.
I would like this, I would like to know, someone to do an analysis to say what it sounds like we're talking about 13, 14, and 15. I would just like to know, maybe for our next board meeting, whether or not we've collected those funds.
Check.
And if we haven't collected it, how do we rectify that? I don't even wanna know, it isn't as much a matter of who was responsible, I would just like to get the money.
No,
And we
that's
can
fine.
fig-
I call the
and-
school district and they'll send us the money.
Great.
That's not even an issue. That's my
Well,
point.
but it is an
But
issue
I
at
think
this
Mr.
point.
Vitani is asking a reasonable,
I just would like to know
Yes.
what we've collected and what we haven't, and what the plan is for getting the money, number one.
Well, then-
And then, to make sure that we have a process in place to double check that we get it every year. That's all. I'm not even asking who's responsible. I think we're all responsible for making sure that the money's collected. That's part of all of our responsibilities. I accept that. So if for next meeting, can we just please
Oh, that's
have,
fine,
have,
but-
have an accounting of what was collected, and if there is a missing payment, then what the plan is to get it. That's all I would
It's pretty
ask.
simple. I
In a
call
written
the-
contract.
I call Lance
important,
Cruz and I say,
okay.
we
So-
didn't
so-
get paid and they
So
sent
it
us a
sounds like
check.
that's where we're
It's
at,
pretty
that's what Mr.
simple.
Vitani is asking.
But I
for.
wanna be really clear that the finance department was the one that billed it and they get it, just like, you know, cable franchise fees. Sometimes I get them in my office, sometimes they go to the finance director. Not tracking all that. Glenn, to be quite honest, would track that.
Well,
I
what-
don't track, honestly, I don't track those payments.
So what we
Because
need to
Glenn,
have.
and I say this because Glenn Spencer was tracking those.
Okay, so what we
So-
need to have in the future is an assurance that our township gets
It's no
the
problem.
fees that they're entitled
Correct.
to.
I
So
agree.
for this instance, can we just please figure out what we've collected, what we haven't collected, and what we're gonna do about it? That's all.
Yeah, we'll have
And
to
I'd
ask
like
the
a written
finance
contract,
director.
Rob. I'd like to have something in writing from now on, so we know exactly. I don't like, that's too much money for us to just suggest that they just continue on along the same path when none of us have ever seen the contract. So I think that's good, kind of
It's
important.
pretty basic. It's
okay.
it's-
If it's
it
basic,
says
it should be easy to
we're
get
we're
around.
gonna collect $2.50. We're gonna keep the float revenue interest. And they're gonna pay us in a timely fashion, which apparently
Hasn't
they
happened.
haven't. Right? So, I don't like the fact that I'm getting accused of not tracking this money.
I don't know
when-
who's
when-
accused you of anything.
When the finance director was the one who has done it for as long as I've been here, to be honest with you. Now, I'm more than happy to do whatever we need to do to rectify that. I'm more than happy to help out. But, I'm not gonna sit here and take the blame for
Well,
why that money didn't get,
Glenn's retired.
why the school district didn't send the check, I don't know, because I don't track it.
Well, Glenn's retired now.
Correct.
And we have a new finance director, so we should start off with a clean slate and have a checks and balance so that we know that that money is deposited into that fund. And let's forget about what Glenn did in the past. Moving forward, we should have the money accounted for, and we should have something in writing between our municipality and that school board so that we're all on the same page.
Well, that's
So
my
we're not
point.
having this discussion again.
The only one who's not on the same page is you. Like I said, the school board, I can't say this enough.
Well, I don't know
Okay,
about
the
that,
school- The
Darren.
school
I'm-
board, the school
I'm
board.
not on the same page because I don't have a
school
written
board-
contract and I don't have 50 grand.
The
So-
school board approved extending the contract. You can semantic it any way you want.
It's awesome,
You
but we
can-
don't have the
you
50
can-
grand.
You can say whatever you want, but the simple fact is that they approved it. End of story. Now, my guess is it got missed because Mr. Spencer did in fact leave. That's why we're missing last year. That's all I can say. I don't know what else to say about it.
Well, I could say without
You know?
without a written contract, he doesn't know what to bill.
Well, he.
And the FOIA, just because I handled it, so I know what documents went out.
That's exact, Adam.
No, hold on,
Adam,
Darren.
That's exact, he does have a contract, because I told him to bill it at that. End of story.
But that's not a contract. You telling somebody something isn't a contract. That's all I'm saying. And I would prefer a written agreement between two parties. Done.
Whatever.
All right, we've beaten that up pretty good.
I don't
I
know
know
how
we've
you
got
have
a,
minutes and-
yep,
and-
we've got a closed session, so I might be looking for a motion to enter into closed session.
It's been a long meeting, I have one quick comment.
Sure,
if I
no
may.
problem, sorry.
Just want to make a note that I see that Governor Snyder signed in a bill number 4209, which apparently has a significant impact on a township's ability to manage medical marijuana regulations. And I know that in our current zoning law, we have something about the ability to establish facilities, I believe it's in commercial districts now. And the only thing I would ask.
Growing.
Right.
Industrial.
So the only thing I would ask is that we re-examine our current practice in light of this new law. I
And I
mean, it
can-
would seem to affect it, so.
And I can tell you, I had lengthy discussions with Mr. Huth and his firm today, and I know he had discussions with attorneys in his office, just to make sure we're taking the steps that we need to. But that was the action that we were gonna give him going forward, was to look at how this law impacts us.
Great.
And what our options are, and we
Super.
talked about bringing it at a future meeting.
Appreciate that, thank you.
And I can say that at the monthly supervisors meeting today, that was a topic of discussion. And I brought up the subject of potentially a moratorium, or what action, what advice were my peers being given by their township attorneys. And at least in, well, I'm just gonna say, at least in one case, I would say more, but at least in one case, another community reported that the legal advice they received was that at this point, failure to act would not result in a penalty. Our current ordinance is in place. I'm saying that I don't really want to take secondhand legal advice, so we have asked Mr. Huth to give us some advice on that. We talked about even potentially taking some action tonight, but in the end, the advice we received was give them the opportunity to look into it, which is what we'll do.
And that's all I'm asking, I appreciate that, thank you.
All right, any other comments? Hearing none, I'd be looking for a motion to enter into closed session to discuss.
Yes, the
Big
case
Mike's.
of Big Mike's Junkyard, that's Nasir Salami, et al. Versus Charter Township of Shelby.
Harrison.
I'll make that
Sorry
motion.
about that.
That's all right.
Wait, can we do that? Can we make him
Yeah,
Shelby instead?
yeah, I love that motion. All right,
I'll make that motion.
so Mr. Tominello, support by Mr. Caproll, discussion. Hearing none, Mr. Witt, will you please take the roll call?
Mr. Tominello?
Oh, I'm
Yes.
sorry, I didn't realize. We do have public comment.
Oh,
Big Mike's Junkyard appeared in front of the Planning Commission and also in front of the ZBA. And in both cases, it was turned down. And as a resident of Harrison Township, and I did view that and watch that, the big problem with Big Mike's Junkyard was that it had a building that was built right on the property line. And it was built without any permits, and it was built with the assumption that even if they got caught, nothing would happen. They admitted that as much in the planning commission. So I would like to make sure that the township does not back off on this. If the building has to be moved or come down, that's what has to happen. Otherwise, every business, every person could just say, well, I'll wait and see if I get caught.
It's not acceptable. I watched both of those hearings, and I was just astounded at how arrogant these business owners were. And if they want to go to court, you take them to court, you let them go to court, and you don't back down. And I hope you support your planning commission and your ZBA. On one other item, Verkest Engineering is listed on BuzzFile and also
Hold on, Mr. Senstack?
Find the Company.
Mr. Senstack?
So people go look there.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
One last thing, William Bardell, yeah, make sure you back your planning commission. Because they built the thing and they start filling it with junk. I even told the owner, hey, you better not fill that with junk, because you're gonna probably have to move it. So they kept filling it, filling it, filling it, filling it. I said, you better stage that stuff somewhere else. Thank you.
Thank you. Seeing no further public comment, we'll close the floor for public comment, move back to board comment. Is there any board comment? Hearing none, Mr. Witt, will you please take the roll call?
Mr. Tominelli?
Yes.
Mr. Capral?
Yes.
Mr. Batanti?
Yes.
Mr. Brado?
Yes.
Mr. York?
Yes.
Mr. Witt? Yes. Mr. Verkest?
Yes. Thank you. Take a brief recess. 9:55.
So are there any contracts?